Shanghai is renowned for its futuristic skyline, attracting some of the world's most famous architects to push their creativity in designing some of the coolest buildings on the planet. It's also drawn the attention of Italy's most renowned architect, Mario Bellini.
I was supposed to design a television exchange building, and then for some reason something went wrong and didn't happen. I like the spirit, the feeling. It's a very spatial place with the Bund, with the river, and with the commercial street full of Western sign and Chinese sign. And so it's really a magic place.
If you know, there was a period that he was designing computer. Back then was typewriter with electrical components. How many people can actually turn down Steve Jobs? He's one of them. Maybe for the public, it's one of the simple things to understand. You probably know there are many famous designers, but to turn down Steve Jobs, I guess there's only a handful.
Recently, Mario Bellini came to Shanghai to hold a lecture about architecture and his designs. It also gave us a chance to sit down with him and learn a little bit more. If you haven't been following architecture, Bellini represents a milestone in the industry. As an architect, he's won 8 Compasso d'Oro awards, Italy's most prestigious prize for structural design. But Mario Bellini didn't actually begin his career as an architect.
I was an architect since the beginning. I studied at the Polytechnico in Milano. I came out as an architect. And by chance I started doing some design, and eventually it was so successful that I couldn't stop it. After the MoMA gave me a one-man show exhibition with all my design, having them already 25 of my works in their permanent collection, I said, okay, now let's start performing architecture very seriously, and so I started my second life.
His career as a product and furniture designer began in 1963. Among the products he had designed, his most famous might be the cab chair, which now has a place in the Museum of Modern Art in New York as a part of its permanent collection. It took Bellini 20 years to finally complete it.
We started from the very fundamental idea of a chair, the very simple one, like a child. A child makes a chair like this, with 4 legs, a perimeter where you sit on, and 2 elements to line on. We made this with metal sticks welded, and it was impossible to sit in, of course. And then the idea was to put something between the metal frames to make it possible to be used as a chair. And so we said, why don't we use leather? It was never has been used before. And when we started making the seat and the back, it was so ugly to see the naked legs. So we said, why don't we do it totally made out of leather? And so the idea is that this is an integral leather chair. There is no metal visible, no wood visible. And that is, it was so original that it started a new chair era.
Since the 80s, Mario Bellini has grown increasingly successful in architecture in Europe, Japan, the US, Australia, and the Arab Emirates. His latest project, the Museum of Islamic Arts at the Louvre Museum in Paris, is one of his most prized projects.
It has been a very, very challenging work. We won a competition for that, something like 10 years ago. And then it has been a long a passion for this work, which now is completed since 2 years. And it's a very important fusion and conjunction between architecture, space design, and showcases design. And so it's, again, synthesis of architecture, interior, and design.
As a trained architect myself, it is very difficult for architecture when you talk about museum, because lighting is something crucial in the museum. There's super high requirements. He said that takes about 3-4 years just to play around with how to control the light and filtering. Traditionally use a solid roof to cover all the lighting from outside, and you just control it with artificial lighting. He managed to do such a beautiful things that fit into the environment of the Louvre, not to take away attention from the pyramid, which is designed by another master, Pei. You can only describe it as a magic.
Like many other architects and designers, Bellini is also fascinated with Chinese elements, and it's certainly something he's thought a lot about.
I wouldn't do it because I respect Chinese culture too much to use it as to reproduce Chinese land, like a Disneyland, you know. That would be wrong. You can reinterpret the spirit of a Chinese culture, but which is not a visual something nice or something Chinese, you know. The spirit is the way of life, the depths of your culture. That's okay. We try to understand that because we respect it.
Architecture is a living art form, shaping the world around us. At its helm are those like Mario, injecting creativity and passion into our environment. And in a city like Shanghai, where each corner seems more like an installation than a cityscape, you can be sure we'll be hearing a lot more from Mario Bellini.